The cameras only caught it for 2 seconds, but honestly, I think those 2 seconds told us everything. Last night, as Princess Leonor stepped onto that military platform in northern Spain, there was this strange moment where the crowd stopped cheering. Not completely silent, but quieter. You could literally feel people studying her face instead of celebrating her. And the weird part, Leonor didn't blink, she just stared forward like someone already carrying the pressure of a crown that hasn't even officially reached her head yet. That's the part nobody wants to admit out loud. The world isn't just watching Leonor anymore. People are starting to fear what she could become. And before anyone says, fear sounds dramatic, no, I don't mean people think she's evil. I mean something much more dangerous for modern Europe. She might actually succeed. That's what changes everything. Because in 2026, monarchies are supposed to feel soft, ceremonial, safe, predictable. The public likes royals when they wave, smile, wear expensive outfits, and disappear. That's the modern deal. Even Prince William and Kate Middleton understand that balance perfectly in Britain. Their image is carefully controlled, elegant, calm, emotionally reassuring. But Leonor feels different, and I think people sense it instinctively. She doesn't move like someone trying to survive a monarchy. She moves like someone preparing to rebuild one. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Because this conversation is getting bigger every single week, and honestly, I don't think most people realize how massive Leonor's rise could become over the next decade. Now here's where things get interesting. The media keeps selling Leonor as this polished, disciplined, picture-perfect future queen. And yes, technically, that's true. But I think the palace is hiding the most important part of the story. Leonor is not being trained like the royals of the past. She's being trained like a response to a crisis. That changes the entire meaning of her reign. Think about the timing for a second. Europe feels unstable again. Politics are fractured. Young people don't trust institutions. The economy feels unpredictable. Military tensions keep creeping back into headlines. And royal families across Europe are trying desperately to prove they still matter in a digital world where TikTok creators get more daily attention than kings. That's the real battlefield now, relevance. And somehow, Leonor has become incredibly relevant without even trying to be an influencer. That's rare. Actually, it's dangerous. Because powerful symbols become magnets. People project hopes onto them. Fears too. And this is where my personal analysis comes in, because I think the global fascination with Leonor has very little to do with gossip anymore. It's about authority. Watch how people react to her military training footage online. The comments aren't just, "She looks beautiful." No, the tone changed this year. Now people say things like, "She looks serious. She looks prepared. She feels different. She acts like a leader." That shift matters more than headlines. And honestly, I think Spain's monarchy knows exactly what it's doing. While other royal families lean heavily into celebrity culture, Leonor's image has become almost anti-celebrity. Less red carpet, more discipline, less glamour, more duty. It's almost the opposite strategy of modern fame. And weirdly, that's why it's working. Look at someone like Mr. Beast for comparison. Sounds random, right? But hear me out. Mr. Beast became huge because audiences stopped trusting polished corporate entertainment. People wanted effort, sacrifice, authenticity, action. Leonor's team seems to understand the same psychology. Instead of endlessly showing luxury, they show endurance. Training, uniforms, responsibility, pressure. It creates the feeling that she earned her future instead of inheriting it. That's an extremely powerful narrative in 2026. Especially for younger audiences who usually reject monarchy completely. And here's the uncomfortable question nobody in the media wants to ask. What happens if Leonor becomes more popular than the political system around her? Seriously, think about it. In unstable times, symbolic figures gain enormous emotional power. History shows this over and over again. People start looking toward personalities instead of institutions. Toward certainty instead of debate. And Leonor's greatest strength might actually be silence. She rarely overexplains herself, rarely creates scandals, rarely jumps into culture wars, rarely sounds desperate for approval. That restraint is making her look stronger every month. But there's another layer here people are missing. I don't think the fear around Leonor is only political. I think some people are terrified because she represents a type of discipline modern culture lost. That's why older generations admire her. That's why younger audiences are weirdly fascinated by her. That's why even people outside Spain keep clicking on videos about her. She feels almost out of time. And yes, I know that sounds dramatic, but tell me I'm wrong. Most public figures today overshare constantly. Every opinion becomes content. Every emotion becomes branding. Leonor does the opposite, and that mystery creates power. The less she says, the more people analyze every movement. Honestly, I noticed this myself recently while watching coverage from her naval training appearances. The internet wasn't obsessing over what she said. People were analyzing tiny details. How she stood, who she looked at, how exhausted she appeared, whether she smiled naturally or not. That's no longer celebrity attention. That's symbolic attention. Big difference. And symbols scare people because they're unpredictable. Now here's the hot take I really believe. The palace may actually be intentionally building Leonor into the serious monarch Europe hasn't seen in decades. Not a social media royal. Not a tabloid royal. Not a Netflix royal. A state figure. That's why her image feels heavier now. Even her public appearances seem colder recently. More controlled. More formal. Less spontaneous. Some viewers interpret that as maturity. Others interpret it as isolation. And honestly, it might be both. Because the hidden cost of creating a future queen this carefully is psychological pressure that normal people can barely imagine. Think about being watched every second of your early adulthood. Every facial expression becoming international commentary. Every friendship analyzed. Every rumored relationship turning into political discussion. At some point, a person either collapses under that pressure, or becomes emotionally untouchable, and I genuinely wonder which direction Leonor is heading. Sometimes when I watch her during official ceremonies, I catch moments where she almost looks emotionally distant, not arrogant, not cold, just intensely guarded. Like someone learning very early that vulnerability is expensive. And maybe that's the real reason people are unsettled by her future reign. Because Leonor doesn't look fragile anymore. She looks prepared. That changes how the public reacts to her. There's a huge difference between admiring a young princess and witnessing the rise of someone who may dominate the next era of European monarchy. The second possibility makes people nervous. Especially the media. Because media systems thrive on chaos, scandals, emotional breakdowns, and endless controversy. Leonor's controlled image disrupts that cycle. She gives very little away. And when audiences can't fully read someone, they become obsessed. You can already see the split happening online. One side says, she's exactly what Spain needs. The other side says, she's becoming too perfect. But perfection itself creates suspicion now. That's the paradox of modern fame. The cleaner the image, the more people search for cracks underneath it. And honestly, I think Leonor understands this better than people realize. There was this tiny moment recently, easy to miss, where a reporter shouted an unexpected question at her during a public appearance. Leonor paused for half a second, smiled politely, then moved on without reacting emotionally at all. Most people forgot that moment instantly. I didn't, because that wasn't natural teenage behavior anymore. That was training, careful training, and again, depending on your perspective, that's either reassuring or terrifying. Now let me say something controversial. I don't believe the biggest challenge of Leonor's future reign will come from Republicans, critics, or tabloids. I think her biggest challenge will be expectations. People are turning her into a symbol before she's even had the chance to fully become a person. That's dangerous for anyone. The internet especially creates impossible mythologies around young public figures. One month they're heroes. The next month people desperately hunt for flaws just to feel balanced again. And if Leonor eventually makes one major mistake, one emotional decision, one scandal, one political controversy, the backlash could be brutal precisely because her image is currently so controlled. That's the risk of becoming larger than life too early. Still, despite all of this, I understand why fascination around her keeps growing. Because whether you support monarchy or not, Leonor represents something modern audiences secretly crave. Stability, discipline, composure, a sense that somebody, somewhere, still takes responsibility seriously. And in a chaotic era filled with influencers chasing attention every hour, that energy feels shockingly rare. Maybe that's why the world can't stop watching her. Not because she's loud, but because she isn't. And honestly, that silence might become the most powerful thing about Queen Leonor's future reign.